Welcome to St. Louis on the Air, and Happy New Year, everybody. Are you among the millions who started the year with a pledge to lose weight? According to the U.S. government, 3 of the first 6 most common New Year's resolutions are to lose weight, get fit, and eat healthy food. Given the obesity problem in this country, these are resolutions millions of us make or should be making. We'll be talking today about ways you can fulfill all 3 of those most popular resolutions. St. Louis and Charles D'Angelo has developed quite a national following for his success in helping people lose weight and keep it off. Many have lost more than 100 pounds. His premise, how we think about food is just as important as what we eat. It worked for him. He lost 160 pounds and has worked with celebrities, politicians, and just plain folks with impressive results. Among those who endorse his technique are Senator Claire McCaskill, Missouri Secretary of State Robin Carnahan, former President Bill Clinton. In the interest of full disclosure, he also helped a member of my own family. His technique is detailed in his book, Think and Grow Thin. Charles D'Angelo joins me in studio, as do 2 people he has helped. Father Ted Vitale, he chairs the philosophy department at St. Louis University. He lost 80 pounds working with Charles. And Alan Finnegan is a law student. He dropped more than 100 pounds. So between all of you, you've dropped well over a person in amount of weight loss. Very, very impressive. Let me ask each of you to kind of give us a thumbnail sketch of your own personal story. Charles, I'll start with you. What got you into this?
It was a number of things. I could have been the king of excuses if I wanted to. I grew up in a family of obesity, with my father's family struggling with diabetes, hypertension, many of the things that the people that now seek my counsel are contending with. I weighed 360 pounds by the time I was 17 years old. I had a size 50-inch waist. I had no social life, no friends, and I felt absolutely hopeless, about ready to give up on my life. And it was only through God's grace and His helping me to stay consistent and to really find that there was something missing in everything else that I had tried. I had tried the diet pills. I had tried the drinks. I had tried the trainers. I had tried the gyms. I had tried all of that. But there was something that once I'd started, I would find myself going right back to the very thing that was at the root of the problem, and that was the poor relationship I had with food and exercise. So really mastering how to get yourself to be consistent, to be focused, to disconnect from spontaneity and become strategic is what I spent my life on helping other people to do, on how to really get into the right relationship, first and foremost with yourself, where you value yourself enough to take charge of your habits and not let your circumstance define you, and then get consistent with your behaviors with food and exercise in a very manageable, sustainable way.
We'll get more specific about some of the aspects of this technique in just a moment. But Father Ted, how about you? What's your story?
Well, I shot up to about 240 pounds, and my blood pressure shot up along with it. Mm-hmm. And I tried to lose weight, and I was unsuccessful. Charlie was one of my students in class, and I think it was in his email address was called Big Charles or something like that. Well, for somebody like me, that's a sitting duck. So I opened up on him. I said, frankly, who's big? I use a vulgarity in there, but who's Big Charles? Okay, and he stood up. I know he was big. And he said why he was big, namely he had lost the weight. Mm-hmm. And I said, I threw a throwaway line in there, just a throwaway line. I just said, well, I'm trying to lose it. Well, he came up after class, and he said to me, how are you trying to lose it? And I told him, he said, you're never going to succeed. And then for the rest of the semester, he peppered me. Of course, I couldn't go to his clinic because there would have been a conflict there, because he was my student. But when it was over, and he kept it up all summer long. It went to July anyway, and finally I decided to go. And it seemed impossible to me. What he was asking from me, I didn't know. I mean, I have an enormous amount of discipline. I'm a monastery-trained guy. I can handle it. This seemed impossible to me, but I lost 8 pounds in 1 week.
Talk about momentum, huh?
Yeah, I said, this can be done. So then I got onto it. And it was a case of knowledge and exercise. Actually, I exercised less with him, but it was more intelligent. I knew what I was doing now.
Sounds like he can be kind of a pain in the neck.
Well, he's disciplined. I mean, I think for some people in the first step, it seems intimidating. He seems intimidating. But he coaches one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So once you're on track, and the results are considerable.
And you answer to him.
You answer to him, yeah.
And to yourself.
Yeah, of course. The end is you got to do it. It's like AA. You have to do it for yourself. Right. You can't do it for somebody else. You can't beat an addiction, whether it's food or booze or whatever it may be. You cannot beat it for the other guy. I don't care if it's your spouse. I don't care who it is. It's got to be you.
And I always say that the best way to overcome if you believe you have an addiction is to find a healthier one. That's the best way to do it. And so for a person that's totally spontaneous, as Ted was, to go to a strategic way of eating and exercise, and then to see results quickly and have that momentum behind him, it's so easy then to stay with it. And Alan will be able to reference that in a moment. And one thing that I want to hit on that Ted mentioned was I've been there. I mean, I weighed 360 pounds. So I am rather persistent with the folks that I help, but it's only out of their best interest because I know what they're capable of. And so many people are about to give up hope. Their doctors have said, well, I can't tell you the number of people down that have come to my office that their doctors have almost given up on them. They said, you know what, the only way that you're really going to change is if you have this surgery or if we do this or that. When in reality, if you just will take control of your mindset, you can change. And these two are examples, as are the thousands of other people that have been helped.
Alan, let me get your story.
I started putting on weight when I was in high school. I'm a huge procrastinator, so what I would do just about every day is I would skip breakfast, get to school early, get my work done. Most days I'd actually skip lunch too, so I could get my homework done during lunchtime. And then I'd get home about 3 o'clock, eat a huge meal to make up for those first two I missed. My family would eat dinner. A couple hours later, I wouldn't be hungry, I wouldn't eat. And then I'd be hungry again at 10, 11 o'clock at night, worst time to eat, and I'd eat another big meal. And that went on for a good 3 years. And I wasn't playing any sports, doing anything physical. So just started adding up. And then my dad saw Charles's ad in a Men's Health magazine, and so I started working out with him. And I lost about 30 pounds. When I started seeing him, I was about 230, lost about 30 pounds. And I had some personal circumstances to where I had to stop working out with Charles. And I got down to Mizzou, and I realized that I had to change because I put all the weight on that I lost with Charles and then about another 30 pounds. So I just started back up when I was getting down at Mizzou.
And then since lost 100 pounds and has kept it off, both of these gentlemen coming on 3 years now.
It is really hard to imagine, Alan, you in particular, because you're lean almost to the point it would occur to me to be underweight. Look underweight, really, very small. But a great tribute to you and your ability to stick with this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Charles, you call yourself a coach.
Absolutely.
Just elaborate on that as the role of the coach.
Well, there's no lack of information out there, right? I mean, there's diet book after diet book. There's exercise program. There's DVD. There's trainers. There's nutritionists. There's all these people and all this information, so much so that I found myself at 360 pounds overwhelmed with what to do. I mean, there's so much conflicting information. So what I focused myself in on is how am I going to synthesize this down into a very workable, sustainable program? And what I found was that it's not some magical diet that is the answer. Of course, a healthy eating plan is part of the program. And of course, consistent exercise is part of the program. I look at this as a three-legged stool. So one leg is healthy eating. The second leg is regular exercise and consistent, maintainable exercise. But what was missing, the third leg that keeps a stool balanced and in check, is the right mindset. And that takes someone on the outside looking in, because it's very easy to get caught up in your circumstances. Both Alan and Ted have had things happen in their life where they could have very easily said, well, it's too difficult right now to make the changes that I'm supposed to be making. It's too difficult right now to eat what I'm supposed to be eating. It would be easier to sleep in. But when you have someone, a coach, someone that cares as much as you do about yourself, or sometimes even more initially than you do, it helps you to know that what you're doing has that payoff. And when you see that that coach that's coaching you has been there himself or herself and has lived it, so that you know what you're doing is going to bring about the very changes that you want in your life, it makes it so much more effortless to be consistent.
You know, anybody who's watched any television over the last couple of days has seen commercial after commercial for various weight loss programs. It was pointed out to me this morning there are even apps now on cell phones that people can use to, and basically what it all boils down to is burn more calories than you take in. I mean, that's what most of the weight loss plans have. But Father Ted, what about this mindset part of it? I mean, that obviously is what's different about the program that you've been involved in.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by mindset?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to. Maybe, Charles,
the disconnection from the spontaneity, Ted. So
yeah, okay, I got you. You have to have a disciplined program. You have to, first of all, you have to believe in what you're doing, and that's where the coaching comes in. because there is massive amount of conflicting information. Just the other day, maybe about 10 days ago, I was talking to friends of mine that are in the medical profession, and they were giving conflicting views. And one person said to me that because of I was going to hurt myself by what I was doing. So who are you going to believe? Well, you're going to believe your coach. So unless you have the knowledge yourself, you're going to believe your coach. You're going to believe the person who's helped you because it works. Well, what it has to be is a disciplined program. So for me, I am as committed to not gaining weight as I've ever been committed to anything physical. I mean it. It requires absolute vigilance. And it has to be a program. So I get up. He's right. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why? I can control 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't control 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's why.
You have to make it at a time that's not going to be interfered with.
That's exactly
Healthy
correct.
eating and exercise. Let's face it. This is not some silver bullet wherein you do what Charles says and you'll never, ever gain weight again if you're not vigilant. You have to be mindful of the very things I teach if you want to be able to sustain your weight loss. If you go back to a life of spontaneity, eating whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, I guarantee, as much as I guarantee that I'll help a person lose weight, that if you abandon the strategy, you can bank on gaining all the weight that you lost back and then some. You have to remain strategic and have an entirely new discipline about the way you think about food and the way you think about exercise, reminding yourself of that three-legged stool, that the mindset is as vital of a part of this as anything else is.
Alan, back to you. You've had to go through the mindset thing twice, I gather, because you lost weight and then you gained weight back. Tell us about that part of it for you.
Well, and that's why I think, going back to what they were saying too, is why Charles's program is so successful, is because a lot of people like to be in a habit and a routine, and by knowing what you're supposed to eat and when you're supposed to eat, it just makes it so much easier. And like we were saying earlier, you just got to think of it as anything else you do every day, like brushing your teeth, taking a shower.
As basic as hygiene.
As basic as hygiene, yeah. And when I had put those 30 pounds back on, I stopped with the routine, and I would try to eat healthier, but I mean, once you stop, it's really good having that routine.
Well, you get back into what I call the defeat whirlpool, where how many people do you know? I mean, people sitting in their car right now that have tried something for 1 or 2 days, and then their best buddy says, let's go out for drinks, or their girlfriend says, let's go out and have dinner tonight, and they get off of the routine that they established for themselves, and they find themselves looking back toward the thing that was at the root cause of their problem for pleasure. You have to learn how to look at food as something that provides nourishment, not something that is at what's going to bring about the ultimate pleasure in your life, or distract you, or keep you feeling happy, or in times of depression or sadness turn toward to make yourself feel different. It cannot be a state changer for you.
Are you telling people what to eat as part of what you do?
Consistent, healthy eating is part of it. So they can slide in any food set that they really like. Now, what I've found are a set of foods that really works well for a person, but by all means, a person can use a different set of foods. I think the real vital piece is the consistency, staying strategic so that set of foods is what they do day in and day out, so that they're not allowing spontaneity to creep back in and get themselves off of course. Yeah.
But you also got to know what you're eating. One of the things that Charlie is a huge help to me on, it's not just consistent, because you can be consistently wrong. Mm-hmm. The funny example I gave him the other day was olive oil. Every Italian loves olive oil, the food of the gods, okay?
And some non-Italians as well.
Well, I was dousing everything in olive oil. I couldn't understand, because I could see I was battling with not putting on weight, but I was coming closer. I didn't understand why. Everything was consistent except I was pouring on the olive oil. I didn't realize how many calories are in olive oil. That's just a piece of knowledge. Yeah. So you not only have to be consistent, you have to be consistent in what is good. You learn a lot of it by practice. You learn, I can eat this, but you got to learn what you can't. For instance, for me, the olive oil was a joke. But to me, if I walk by a loaf of bread, I gain weight.
Yes. And for some people, that is true. Some people genetically are predisposed to storing more fat than others. That happens.
As you apparently were.
Obviously, yes.
I have to take a break now. Well, we are talking about a weight loss program that has been developed by a man called the St. Louis weight loss guru. That would be Charles D'Angelo. He's with me in studio. He's also the author of the book, Think and Grow Thin. He's helped many, many people, celebrities and politicians and just plain folks, as I mentioned early on. With me in studio are a couple of the just plain folks, if you don't mind my putting it that way, who have lost between them 180 pounds. Charles lost 160. Father Ted Vitale of St. Louis University is with us, and Alan Finnegan, a law student at Mizzou, is also with us in studio. We want to get back and take your calls. We have one dealing with a mindset issue, which I'll take as soon as we come back. 382-8255 is the number. That's 382-TALK. Send us an email at talk@stlpublicradio.org. We'll take a tweet at STL On Air or reach us through Facebook. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Hello again, and welcome back to our conversation with Charles D'Angelo, the St. Louis weight loss guru, who's had great success with his particular strategy for losing weight. And, of course, we are talking about that at this time because so many people have vowed over the New Year's holiday to lose weight in the coming year. A few of them will, many more probably will not, unless they take to heart some of the advice that we'll be giving here today. Also with me in studio is Father Ted Vitale of St. Louis University. He lost 80 pounds under the coachship, if you will, of Charles D'Angelo, and Alan Finnegan, a student of law at University of Missouri. He lost more than 100 pounds, also working with Charles. I want to go to the phones right away because we were talking about mindset earlier on, and John in North St. Louis apparently wants to address that issue. So go ahead, John.
Yes, I contend that willpower and discipline won't work. And for me, I would say that the perfect mindset would be is to picture exactly in your mind the body you want and concentrate on what it would mean to you personally to look exactly like that. One way to help you do that is if you can get if you're a male, for example, you get a picture of a torso you see on these men's health magazines.
Sure.
And say to yourself that is me now.
Yes, shifting your identity to that is ideal, John. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, in my book, Think and Grow Thin, one of the things I did, which is ironic that you should mention, was I would look at the Abercrombie and Fitch ads of the gentlemen that were in great shape, and I saw myself as lean and fit in the present moment. When a person comes to me for my personal coaching, the first thing that we get clear on is you are not a fat person. To fight against being fat is to wage a war that's not necessary. You want to behave consistent with the identity of being healthy. Remember, this isn't all about a number either or a particular clothing size. Both of those are very important and very exciting, compelling goals to have. But ultimately, it's all about maintaining and sustaining good health habits. And so looking at yourself as lean and fit in the present will make it far easier to be congruent with that identity as time goes on.
But, you know, there was a piece on NPR this morning in which a study was conducted, and I don't know how many people were involved, but they had daily diaries of what they ate. And a pictured part of the diary, and one of them was the Abercrombie and Fitch, the lean models, the guys with the
six-pack abs and everything else.
All that sort of thing.
Sure.
And then the other group that was part of the study, they simply had a tape measure at the top of each page. Mm-hmm. And the people with the tape measure actually lost weight to a greater degree and more consistently.
Oh, interesting.
And the people watching the people they would like to be and the people they would like to emulate. Very interesting study, I thought. Father?
I'd like to ask a question of the caller. Is it John?
John is gone. That connection was so bad we had to let him go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because I didn't know what he meant by discipline, because it requires the discipline to do what he wanted to do. Just the very thing. It requires exactly that, exactly the same thing.
But Alan, I'm guessing, it really doesn't make much difference what technique you use as long as you establish something and then follow it with that kind of discipline.
Yeah, I mean, I never personally put up a picture, looked at pictures. I always knew what I wanted to look like and what I thought I looked like, but not how everyone else saw me. Mm-hmm. And that's really what kept me motivated. And, the tape measure thing doesn't surprise me because I think when people can actually see, like, a tangible result, they're more likely to keep going.
Far more consistent with what they're doing until they reach their outcome. But remember again that this is a journey without a finish line. So many people look at this as once I hit that tape measure mark or once I hit that number on the scale, then I can go back to a spontaneous lifestyle. And the fact of the matter is you can't. And you asked a good question earlier, Don, that I want to elaborate on a bit. You said, what about people that don't know what to eat. And if they're looking for that, they can certainly find that out there in my book or by seeing me or whatever. But again, I think the most important thing is you have to have a strategy that works, but that's not that hard to find. We have diet after diet that has success stories. All diets have an effect. The question isn't the effect. The question is, how are you going to make that habitual lifestyle, the habitual lifestyle habits that you're becoming accustomed to, things that outlive the attainment of the goal? Because if you want to be able to live the quality of life that Alan lives or that Ted lives, wherein he's no longer on hypertensive medication or anything else, you have to be able to turn away from those things that used to be so enjoyable to you that are very bad for you.
But by the way, I'm just advised that NPR story that I mentioned a moment ago has been put on our website. So if people would like to listen to that in some detail, they can do so. One other area I'd like to get to before to go to another guest that's participated in your program is the fact that, pardon me, there is a disparity in age between Alan and Father Ted.
Slightly.
He's pretty old, isn't he?
Probably about 50 years. I'm not going to say which one is at the higher end of that level. But are they treated differently? Is age a factor in what you do?
No, it's not chronology. It's psychology. And the strategies and the ways that I go about coaching a person, yes, they are dependent on the person I'm dealing with that's in front of me. But for the most part, the strategy about healthy eating and exercise is pretty consistent. For example, a person starts with just walking on the treadmill as they are beginning the program with the foods as well. So they're getting on a healthy eating plan and coupling that with regular, consistent cardiovascular exercise. So it's not something that's overwhelming or makes them feel that it's so daunting they can't do it. The bigger challenge is going from maybe eating just one time a day, like Alan mentioned earlier. He would go all day without eating, skipping meals out of procrastination, and get to 10 or 11 o'clock at night, eat one big meal. Going from that to making certain that you're waking up on time to eat breakfast every day, and you're eating every 3 hours from that point forward, you'd be shocked at the reality of how much food you need to eat to burn fat.
Yeah, that's called grazing, isn't it? What you're suggesting? No, I'm serious. I think that is a bona fide term.
With poor strategies, it's called grazing. With proper strategy, it's called eating effectively.
Let me correct myself, by the way. That NPR story that I mentioned is on our Facebook page and our Twitter page, not on our website, although who knows, it might well wind up there. I'm going to bring in Sandy Krancer, who is joining us, who is another one of the people that Charles has worked with.
A female.
A female, yes. We want to get the gender issue into this.
Absolutely.
Sandy, are you there?
I'm here.
Thanks so much. Good morning.
Hey, Sandy.
If you would, in a thumbnail way, tell us your story, Sandy.
Well, I started out at approximately 250 pounds, and I'd always dieted. I did the up and down. I would do Weight Watchers. I did everything that I could possibly try. And I would lose 20, 25 pounds, and then I would just end up putting it back on because, like you had mentioned earlier, Charles, you know, what you need to do is once you get to that measurement on the tape measure or whatever, once you got to that point and then you reached it, you thought, oh well, now I can go back to my old habits again.
Exactly.
And that just is not the facts. What Charles taught me to do is he actually taught me to eat as well as exercise together, and I'd always dieted and didn't exercise, or exercised and didn't diet. And when I put the two together, and when Charles actually taught me how to eat and the proper way to eat, I was also one of those people that would wake up in the morning. I did not eat breakfast. I maybe thought about eating, around noontime or so, and then I was hungry. I would overeat. I just didn't eat right, and I didn't eat the right things. So when I put the diet and the exercise together, then it really proved to work for me. But anyway, so I lost quite a bit of weight, and then I kind of fell off and gained a little bit back. Went back to Charles again, and then I finally figured it out that it's really just a lifestyle change. And so anyway, I'm not going to lie to you. I have my moments where I, indulge and eat more than what I should, but the thing is you need to wake up the next day and you need to get right back on it again. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key. And then of course I never quit exercising. I exercise 5 days a week. I go to a little place called Women's Fitness here in Fenton, and they've really, between Charles and my workout coaches, they've really helped me totally. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I never give up. I never give up on that exercise, and then I always rely back to my program, and I eat proper meals. I eat my snacks, and I eat my meals like I'm supposed to eat. So.
Wonderful.
Sandy, stay with us for a second. Charles, is there a difference in approach between men and women?
I would say there's a lot more factors that play into a female's transformation than do a male's, in the sense that our society pulls at women a lot more than it does a male in some ways. For example, a woman oftentimes has to be a person who holds a job, as well as a mother, as well as a spouse. And as a mother, she has to take care of her children, and oftentimes there's lots of obligations that come with that. So oftentimes when a person comes to see me who's a female, she has a lot of societal pressures on top of her normal day-to-day pressures of being in an office and everything else. So those, of course, have some impact on the way in which she contends with the day and the challenges that are coming up in addition to those. So when we sit down and we outline her plan, we have to make certain that we adjust for the things that she's going to do in her schedule that have to do with her family obligations and the other things that come with it.
Can we say that men or women, one or the other, is generally more successful at weight loss?
No, I would not say that. I would say they're equally successful. Right. I think that the difference is that you have to understand, no matter what your gender or what your age, that it's going to take a different mindset to be able to be consistent. It doesn't matter if you're young, if you're old, if you're a male, if you're a female, if you've done it before or haven't. The biggest thing is changing your relationship with food and exercise. And I would say by having the strategy that Sandy outlines, talking about eating 6 times a day and exercising 5 times a week and getting into that routine, most of us are in a routine as it is. I mean, ask yourself the question, what are you going to eat tomorrow? If you can't answer that question, then there's a problem. And I can pretty much bet that you won't be able to guarantee that you'll be as consistent as you would like to be with regard to achieving your goals. So if you don't know what you're going to be doing in advance, you need to sit back and outline a plan for yourself that's going to be something that you can actually keep with.
Would making out a menu for the week
absolutely
be
for more than a week? I say 2 weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. So for 14 days, you have a consistent set of foods in which you're eating things that you like, that are easy, that are accessible, that taste good. I think that that's one very, very crucial key, making certain that the exercise is happening at a time, as Ted talked about earlier, that's not being interfered with, because when you're at home and the phone rings or your little one runs up to you or you jump off because you have to go and pick somebody up from school, it's very easy then to get off of course. And by holding those two things consistent and by focusing yourself on progress rather than excuses, you really get yourself into the right mindset about this whole process.
But you say focus on things that you like and that taste good, but
absolutely.
Also that are not overladen
with salt
calories
or sugar, and don't drink your calories. That's one thing people can do instantly. There's one rule that I say when a person first comes in, and that is you can drink only 0-calorie beverages. Mm-hmm. Eliminate all the simple sugars, all the calories from alcohol, all the calories from all those things that you need not be having.
And of course, the alcohol of the 6 issues that I mentioned at the beginning, and 3 of them
probably one of them.
Is definitely one of them.
Absolutely, and you eliminate that, and you then can also help eliminate the first issue, which is your weight and your health problems.
Ted, you wanted to get in on
it? Well, we talked about the differences or the similarities in the gender issue, but you got an age issue here too.
That's why.
Except for you and I, Don. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 70.
I'm not going to tell you either.
Good for you. I'm 70 plus, and I think there's a different psychology in play here because when you're young, you have a tremendous sense of the possible. Okay, but if you don't, then you're not young. Something's happened to you. Okay, but when you get older, the trouble is, it isn't that you give up on life; it's that you give up on the hope of any significant change.
Well, you can give up. You don't, but you can.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm giving you a general mindset. And one of the things you have to overcome when you get older is that you have to overcome that, and in a sense, it's almost psychological lethargy. You've got to believe that it's possible. I remember my brother telling me when I was losing the weight, you want to build up. He says, you're too old to build muscle mass. That's not true. You can it's
absolutely
harder,
not true.
But you can do it. But you got to have that in your mind that you may be 65 or 70 years old, but you can do it.
And the possibility is always there. And that's what I'm talking about this cultural idea that there's some diet out there or some new scientific study that's going to say that, well, this is the only way that a person can reach their goal. The only way you can reach your goal is through healthy eating and consistent exercise, period. There is no study that I have ever seen, and I challenge anyone to find, that has shown that through consistent, appropriate, healthy eating and consistent exercise, a person has failed to reach their health goal. You know, it's amazing. We talked about the fiscal cliff happening, right? We're headed towards we're talking about a real cliff here with what diabetes is doing to our nation. Right now, our nation spends $175 billion, yes, with a B, $billion a year on diabetic care. On average, 100 African Americans die a day. And that doesn't seem like much until it's somebody that you know. So the reality is that type 2 diabetes, 90% of the cases are preventable. I don't say treat it or try to control it, eliminate it by getting into the right strategy of eating and the right strategy of exercise with the right mindset, because you don't need to be dealing with these issues. All these health issues that so many are plagued by can be controlled and reversed if a person will only step up to the plate and start believing again.
I want to just thank Sandy Crancer for being with us. Sandy, you've been listening to this. Is there anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
Well, and I agree totally with that diabetes. My husband, he's got diabetes, and he always told me when I was heavy that, you know, that I was heading his direction and I was going to be taking medicine. And so, you know, I agree totally with that, and I'm always telling him, you need to go see Charles so you can get off of your diabetic
Well, most importantly, Sandy, tell them how much you lost and how long you've kept it off.
I've lost about 105 pounds, and I've kept it off. I'm going on 2 years now. And another thing that really helps me, and I didn't mention it earlier, is I keep a journal, and I write in that journal every single day, and more than one time a day. I write down everything I eat. I write down when I exercise. I write down when I do my cardio, my water intake. I keep a track of everything that I do. And then again, that exercise, you know, if something comes up in the evening when I can't exercise after work, then I do it in the morning before I go to work.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't miss my exercise.
Do you weigh yourself every day?
I don't weigh myself every day. I usually try to do that like every couple weeks just to make sure that I'm on track. Charles would probably agree that I should do it once a week, but I never do it every day because, you know, the scale, it's a good indicator of what you're doing, but I think that if you did it every day, I don't think that's...
There's a lot of variables that play in: water retention, hormonal levels, the time of a month for a woman in particular. So you don't want to hang yourself up on that. Remember, focus on behaviors. You take care of the behaviors. As the old saying goes, take care of the corners and the middle of the floor will take care of itself. If you take care of your behaviors, you don't have to really worry about the number, and you have more reference to support that what you're doing is working.
Sandy,
and my clothes actually pretty much give me an indicator if I'm doing
yes,
okay.
They have a way of doing it. Sandy, thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations on your success with the weight loss.
Thank you, and have a great New Year.
Same to you. And Father Ted, you wanted to say something on that?
Well, I'm thinking about the weight. Yeah, I weigh myself every day, and I learned from that. It's just part of the discipline. Everybody's got their way of doing things. But I monitor what I'm doing. I monitor my exercise the same way. Yep. But one of the things I learned by weighing myself every day, because I know what I ate the night before, I learned where the pitfalls were.
You know, I do exactly the same thing, and it's amazing how much you can learn, and some of the things that you really should avoid or use as a treat periodically as opposed to a regular part of the diet. Got to take another break. We have some people waiting to get into the conversation. I'll ask Ed and Leo to be patient. We'll come to you when we come back. We're talking about weight loss, and with me in studio is Charles D'Angelo, the St. Louis weight loss guru, as he is called. His book is Think and Grow Thin, and we're talking about his program, obviously, and other things that relate to weight loss. Also with me in studio is Father Ted Vitale of St. Louis University and Alan Finnegan, a law student at the University of Missouri. 382-8255 is the number for those of you who want to get into the conversation. We'll be right back. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Hello again, and welcome back. Let's go right to the phones and emails and tweets. We'll begin with Leo, calling from the Central West End. Leo, thanks for being so patient. Go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely, Leo.
Good. Hey, before I get to my comment, I want to ask Charles a question. Charles, at the gym yesterday, what movement was that you were doing when you did like a one-arm pull? Was that for your lats or for your shoulders? I saw that.
A one-arm pull. I'll have to try to remember.
You were sitting down.
Okay.
And you had the cable, the overhead cable, and you were pulling it down with your right hand. And
it was probably something from my lat. I don't remember entirely what you're talking about, but just come up to me in the gym, and I'll be happy to show you.
All right. Well, my comment is, I don't want to lose weight. I want to lose belly. How many times?
What's the difference?
Okay, yeah. What is the difference? You're right. But
you want to get leaner, you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
You want to preserve your muscle tissue, but you want to burn through fat, correct?
Right. So I want to ask you, how many times a week should I increase my cardio?
Oh, wonderful question.
2 or 3 times or what?
It's great that you asked that, because just before the segment, Ted and I were talking about how many people you see in the gym day after day that are running their tail off on the treadmill, and they're not seeing any changes. The biggest thing you can do, Leo, what I would say is start with 5 times a week on the incline treadmill and put it at a slight incline that's comfortable, so you're not tiring yourself out as far as causing yourself any pain in your extremities, in your legs or in your shins. I don't want you to be having any high impact initially, and anyone listening that's going to embark on this, take that advice as well. Secondly, I would start with about 30 to 35 minutes of walking at an aerobic pace. So for you need to really watch your heart rate and look for getting yourself in the aerobic level, so that your heart rate's just really not too up there where you feel like you can't hold a conversation while you're doing it, but you're walking consistently, and just do 30 to 35 minutes. But more importantly, don't forget how important your food intake is, even more so than the cardio. You're not going to get rid of that belly fat, that abdominal fat, by doing sit-ups or by running on the treadmill. It's going to come from consistency in your eating. That's the biggest change that you need to make. So if there's anyone out there that's struggling with the same issue that Leo's contending with, you need to change your food habits. So many people do sit-up after sit-up, or run on the stairs, or run on the treadmill, or do whatever they're going to do, and they don't see the changes they're looking for, because what they're doing outside of the gym is negating the work they're doing in the gym.
Hey, Charles, speaking of things outside the gym, I got one bugaboo. I love ice cream. Is there a low-fat ice cream on the market that I can get?
You're asking the wrong guy about that stuff, because I'll tell you this. My approach is this. I think that in many cases you have to treat this like any other addiction.
That's right.
That you don't give yourself any of it. You have to learn how to disconnect from that. I mean, think about something that's a real addictive substance. You don't take just a little of it if you're trying to get yourself over it. You don't give yourself any. Start to replace that with the right behaviors, and you'll find that you won't have that hankering for those types of foods. When you're eating consistently 6 times a day, you're making sure you're starting your day with a good amount of lean protein and some complex carbs, and you're eating every 3 hours. Once you do that, Leo, you won't find yourself hungry, and you're not nearly as vulnerable to giving into temptation. So many people talk about, well, there's no way I could ever give that up. That's okay. But what you need to do is then set up a time where in every week, maybe one night a week, if you're going to have that type of meal, you call it your refuel night. And if you read my book, Think and Grow Thin, I outline how to really design that into your life so it works for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll see you at the gym, man.
Take care. Thanks for listening, buddy.
Father Tim?
I just said that a word that Charlie just came up with, and that was the word addiction. For some of us, we have to look at certain kinds of foods as addictive. That's what I had to do. Mm-hmm. I look at carbohydrates, pasta, things that I absolutely love, bread. I have to look at as a danger.
A healthy respect for those foods.
Yeah, I have to, so I'm not going to go there.
That's where weighing yourself every day teaches you which ones are the ones that you really have to defend.
And this idea, Don, that so many people think that this is supposed to be effortless and a lot of fun. Let's face it, anything that's worth doing is going to take work. Where in the world did we ever come up with this idea as a culture that to get the things we want shouldn't take any effort on our part? Or we should be able to do things that don't require that we raise our standards on ourselves. If you want to have more, if you want to have a higher quality of health, you're going to have to raise the expectations you have on yourself. I can help you do that. My book can help you do that. Most importantly, you have to see that it's possible, despite your age or your circumstance. No matter if you're 500 pounds or if you're 150 pounds, no matter where you are, if you're willing to raise the expectation you have on yourself, anything you want is possible with that knowing.
You're not going to like this question, but couldn't people
then don't ask it, Don.
Couldn't people do this without going to you and without reading your book on the basis just of what they've heard here today?
You know, it's really, really unique you ask that. And it's the biggest blessing I have and probably one of the biggest burdens is that so many people have come to me saying that they have tried program after program after program, approach after approach after approach, and have never been able to see the types of changes they've seen working with me or, more importantly, sustain the types of changes they have. There's something, I don't know what it is, and I don't say this to sound arrogant or impress you, but to impress upon the fact that there is something about having the accountability and having someone that's been there, that's lived it, and provide that insight. I mean, I'm blessed by it, but I'm also burdened by it because I'm only one man. And so I wrote a book, and I put every strategy that I could possibly put in there that's worked for a person at the national political level and for stay-at-home moms and teenagers, so that the people that don't have access to me one-on-one can go ahead and really embrace what I teach, put it into practice every day, and see the results. Because my mission is, it's not only my method, but my mission is to help people take control of their health and to not be lonely. Alan, I want to bring him into the conversation because he was really feeling alone. He went to, what motivated him to take action at Mizzou was he went to a party the first night at Mizzou. And Alan, you can talk about it. I mean,
yeah, my very first night down at Mizzou, I went to a party with some of my high school friends that also went there with me. And they were just, out having a great time talking with everybody. And I was pretty much just sitting in the corner by myself because I felt like everyone was looking at me and judging me. And I mean, after that night, that's when I decided to get back on Charles's program.
How much exercise do you do? You mentioned earlier on.
I exercise 5 or 6 times a week.
What sort of aerobic kind of things? Or
I don't do too much because I'm trying to put on some weight, so I don't do too much cardio. But I do about 30 minutes of cardio, 45 minutes of lifting weights.
Really? Mm-hmm. Ted, you wanted to...
No, it's okay.
Okay. Let's go back to the phones and bring in Ed, who's been waiting practically the whole program. I apologize for that, Ed, but go ahead.
Yes, I graduated from St. Louis University in 1972 with an accounting degree, and between that time and now, I've lost over 60 pounds. And the thing that I see here is the common denominator here is between me and the gentlemen that are on the panel is sitting at a desk. And I'll tell you, sitting at a desk, because I am 10 pounds lighter than I was a senior in high school.
Wow, and congratulations, Ed.
Yeah, but it's sitting at a desk. And now, really, it's not, anyway, it's sitting at a desk.
Are you saying, am I hearing you in understanding you to say that the sedentary lifestyle that many professionals live is what leads to the issue? Is that what you're saying?
I'm going to tell you, first, I think it's an excellent question, but you don't realize, if you were standing, you wouldn't realize how much weight you're holding up when you're sitting on a chair.
Oh, so you're saying that when you're sitting, you're more able to deny the fact that you're overweight?
And sitting is not what we're designed to do.
No.
You're sitting in front of a screen. I was sitting in front of my homework. I was sitting in front and doing my work.
So what made you take action? What made you decide to change?
I quit working as an accountant. I did something else, and I was standing up. And I was walking around. Plus, the other thing is, I got divorced, and I needed to look better, and I took care of myself.
I can understand that, yeah. And he's hitting on a very important point. In reference to that three-legged stool, exercise is, of course, important, but you can walk around or stand up 22 hours out of the 24-hour day, and if you're not eating right and keeping yourself consistent, you won't be able to maintain the changes you see. Ted?
Yeah, I'm a sedentary person, too. I teach at SLU. And obviously, other than when I'm standing in class, which is only a couple hours a week, when you think it all the way down, sure, I'm sitting at a desk. That's why the exercise is crucial. You've got to balance that out. If you don't, you're running the risk.
Time is beginning to get away, so I'm going to run through a couple of tweets and emails that we have here for quick responses, please. Heather on Facebook says, D'Angelo's program seems perfect for people like my father of a certain personality type. Heather wants to know about disordered eating.
I definitely say two things. One is I want to preface everything with, before starting any exercise or nutritional program, you need to really be in talks with your doctor. And more importantly, go to your doctor even if you're at a place where you're not sure you want to take any action, so you can get a starting point, get some blood work ran. So with a person that struggles with disordered eating, they need to seek the counsel or the treatment of a trained dietitian or nutritionist, someone that's trained to be able to deal with that. I don't treat that. I'm not a dietitian by any means. I'm a person that's created a system of thinking and living that helps people take total control of their habits.
Twitter question, how do you deal with a mental exhaustion problem? I've been dealing with weight loss all my life. I'm just sick and tired.
That's one of those vicious cycle issues wherein you're tired of being tired, right? So you say, well, to go exercise will require even more energy, which I don't have. So you have to start at the beginning. Start eating right and start with a very sustainable amount of exercise. So get yourself on a pattern of eating where you're eating 6 times a day. And if people out there listening, you're sitting in your car and you don't know what the heck to eat, pick up the book, Think and Grow Thin. All the food plans and menu guides are in there, and it's very easy. It's real food. That's the other thing, Don, is you don't have to go out and buy some prepackaged food, just real food.
But it doesn't have to be a full meal. It's just something like
maybe an ounce of almonds at 9 in the morning, and then having something at Subway at lunch, and then in the middle of the afternoon having a low-fat yogurt. I mean, very simple, accessible things.
Subway?
Subway, absolutely. Many of my clients go to Subway and they'll get a turkey sandwich on whole wheat bread. For people that are on the go and that don't have the access that they need to a kitchen, that's a very easy, very efficient way of being able to eat healthy on the road.
Thanks so much for this show. I started my own commitment to health back in October. I think it's important to stress that when you're ready, it's time to start. I could have easily waited until now with the holidays coming up, but I didn't, and I'm instead down several pounds through the season.
Wonderful.
And that is a key, is you've got to be ready to make this commitment.
And get yourself ready by asking yourself, where will I be if I keep with this habit pattern in a week, in a month, in a year, in 2 years? I mean, if you've gained just a pound a month over the course of a year, that's 12 pounds a year. In 2 years, that's 24 pounds. In 3 years, that's 36. How are your clothes going to fit? How's your energy going to be impacted? What's it going to feel like when your doctor says it's time to go on diabetic medication or give yourself a shot of insulin? You need not get to that place if you'll step up and take control of your habits.
Linda tweeted, I should say. She says, "I need an addiction to celery." I think we all get that. Now, a question here, and again, time is moving along. What are your recommendations for eating if you work off hours and outside 4 to midnight?
The same principles apply. You start your day with the moment you get out of bed and try to shoot to get at least, I always say, 8 hours of sleep per night. But if you're not waking up until, let's say, 9 o'clock at night to start an evening shift of work, that's fine. I have many working professionals, including doctors and physicians themselves, that work overnights, that are on call at those hours. And they are able to successfully reach their goal independent of their schedules. But you have to have that scheduled eating plan in place wherein you're eating every 3 hours nonetheless.
Well, I'm going to try to squeeze in Jay's call from St. Charles. It'll be the last one, but Jay, it's going to have to be fast.
Absolutely. I'm actually on the other side of this. I'm very underweight. I'm very thin, actually, and have hypoglycemia. How important is basically exercise to me? I like to exercise, but is it something I should still do? Because I'm also having problems eating as well. So I'm just trying to figure out how important exercise is, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. For a person that's underweight, you really want to focus more, I would say, on making sure that your calories are where they need to be. And you need the help of a professional to do so, because if you're not eating enough and you're exercising, of course, you're going to run a deficit and only complicate the issue you're already dealing with.
All right. Well, we've reached just about the end of our time, but Father Ted, I know, has something he wants to say.
No, it's fine. I didn't know if we were going off the air or not.
No, we're not. We've got 2 minutes left, and I'll ask each one of you, and I'll start with you, Father Ted Vitale.
Okay.
Put your own personal bottom line to this program. What's your best advice to people out there who may or may not go to Charles who want to lose weight?
I think the most important thing for me, and I think it applies to people my age, is not to become despondent. The person who wrote it said they were tired, mentally tired of it. Sure, who wasn't? This thing, once you start to have success, your confidence will come right along with it. That's the truth. I do think you need coaching, though. I don't think you can do it on your own. I think it's too complicated.
Could that coach be a spouse?
Hell no. Heck no. Excuse my language there.
No, I don't think so.
No, you don't want to have dual relationships. And I have parents and spouses that come to me all the time that have put themselves in the wrong place in that whole context because they're trying to be somebody they can't be. You need someone on the outside, not someone that is going to sleep with you at night or that's your child. You want to have someone on the outside looking in.
Alan, give us your cap to this.
The only thing I want to say is that me and I think a lot of other people like habits and routines, and that's what Charles is all about. And once you it all took just a week for me to see the results, and I was hooked. And once you start getting once you start seeing that benefit in a couple weeks, a month, you start seeing in your clothes, and it just makes it all worth it.
That's the biggest thing. If anyone out there sitting in your car right now and you're about to give up hope, don't. That's the most clear point I can make, because it's so frustrating for me to know that the book possesses the ability to totally transform and take control of your health if you're just willing to take the plunge, take the jump. Don't have fear. Abandon the fear and work with it, because you can make your life exactly the way you want it to be.
We'll have to leave it there. That's Charles D'Angelo. His book is Think and Grow Thin. Thank you so much, Charles, for being with us in
My
studio.
pleasure.
Father Ted Vitale of St. Louis University, great seeing you. Congratulations on what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
And Alan Finnegan, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Good luck back at Mizzou, and keep up the good work on the weight loss program.
Thanks.
Good to talk to you all. Tomorrow on St. Louis on the... Oh, and by the way, thanks to Sandy Kranzer, too, for also joining us as part of the program.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Tomorrow on St. Louis on the Air, we'll talk with author Stefania Silvestri about her experience growing up in the St. Louis area while her father suffered from early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Archived versions of past St. Louis on the Air programs are available for download or podcast at stlpublicradio.org. St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Don Marsh. For listening, 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 I'm